Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to Jan's Opening Clinic. Season 21, Episode 2. I don't think 21 Jump Street ever got to Season 21. They probably did get to Episode 2. Anyway, this is a show where you guys can ask me opening questions, and you have done so. We are in the middle of working our way through 60 Chess24 premium user questions to hopefully help them a little bit with their opening play. Let's jump into the next question. See what's going on. There is Mr. Japer, number 10, I believe from Holland. He's telling me, "Hello Jan, the new format is working well. Your last answer to my question helped me to improve my repertoire, so thanks for doing this great work. You're very welcome." That's what I like about the show, all the praise. Because let's face it, we're all in it for the praise, for the likes, for the recognition. And I get a lot of love on opening clinics, so thanks for that. And this time, my question is about meeting the Rossolimo with black. I did some work on the quote-unquote old main line with black reacting with d takes c6 when white takes on c6 with the bishop. I came to the conclusion that this line is still playable for black with the following moves. Okay, long line, I'll put it on the board. This way, black is getting a balanced and still a fighting position. If white plays bishop d6, I'm planning to follow Leko against Van Wely 2005 in Dortmund with 17 bishop takes h3, also with equal chances. I disagree with that. We'll get to it in a minute. Do you agree with my conclusions? No. Is there a moment in the line where white can improve drastically or make life harder for black? No. And last but not least, white can also choose to postpone the capture on c6 and play with castles rook e1 and c3 first. What is a good way for black to play against that system? Thanks a lot, Jasper. Alright, long question by Jasper. Let's see what we can tell him. So, the Rossolimo. Nowadays, or not just nowadays, it's been very popular for a long time. It's just as established as the move 3d4, the move 3 bishop to b5, g6, together with e6. The main options here, bishop takes c6, black once again has a choice, b takes c or d takes c, but Jasper was focused on the move d takes c6, which, you know, capturing away from the center, but on the other hand, freeing the view for the bishop and the queen. d3, bishop g7, h3, all of those are the standard moves. Knight to f6, knight to c3. And here is where it gets interesting. Jasper is into this old line with knight to d7, which, yeah, I think was the most popular around 2005. It's like, I don't know, Prison Break, the Wire Season 3. It's been a while. Nowadays, they mainly, I believe, play short castles. Then you get something like bishop e3, b6, whatever, queen to d2, pawn to e5. This type of position where black allows bishop to h6, exchanging these guys. And now, well, there's different moves. Rook to e8 or queen to d6. I believe they argue that these positions are quite tenable for black. So let's see why, in my opinion, the line we were asked about is no longer that popular. It's knight to c3, knight to d7 immediately, delaying castles, bishop to e3, e5, queen d2, h6. This is the point to avoid, or the idea, to avoid bishop to h6. Short castles, knight to queen e7, to prepare knight to f8. Defend this pawn first. Knight to h2, knight of 8, f4, takes, knight to e6, bishop to g3, queen to g5. All of those moves, I believe, are best, of course. There are options along the way, but Jasper did go straight down the main line here. Queen to e1, avoiding the exchange of queens. Knight to d4, queen to f2. Now that there's no longer any bishop coming to d4, picking up the queen, we go queen f2. Target this guy, and so on and so forth. Short castles, and bishop to d6. And yeah, I believe the reason that this line has fallen out of fashion is exactly the line he gave with bishop takes h3. Following, what was it, Leko Van Wely, 2005, bishop f4, queen g2, takes, knight c2, rook 81. And black does have 3 pawns for the piece. But to my mind, it's not quite enough with the double pawns, and it's not so easy to create an impactful pass pawn. This guy's a pass pawn, he doesn't do much. So I believe the practical results are bad here, and probably it's depending on what engine you ask. It won't give white much, but I don't trust this position at all for black, and I don't consider it to be playable. I wouldn't be surprised if, yeah, you let engines play against each other a lot here. That white would win a high percentage, and even in human play, I believe white has scored pretty well, because the piece is better than the 3 pawns here. So that, I've thought about this a bit, and I've looked at potential deviations, but I do believe that Jasper did pretty good work there, and he narrowed it down to the main line, where, yeah, unfortunately, in my opinion, white is better. So I would stay away from the whole thing, as most top players have been doing, and instead of knight d7, go for this castles, followed by e5. The knight c7, knight d7, h6 plan is a little too ambitious. Along the way, there's some potential deviations, but nothing too scary. I believe there's knight to f3, which looks playable instead of queen to f2. Then queen to d8 and knight takes d4, or queen to d2. But none of those lines look like improvements from white's point of view. Queen f2 castles here. There was also the move e5 that looked interesting. Black has to takes, here, knight e4. Some pressure for white as well, but the main issue is I just don't believe, well, I'm repeating myself already, I just don't believe this endgame to be played. I don't consider it to be playable for black, so I wouldn't do it. What was the other part of the question? I was after g6. You can also delay taking on c6 and play this stuff. This, I think it's been out of fashion from the white point of view for a while, right? You go knight f6, c3, short castles, d4, and you play d5. I think one can do it directly without including cd. I always thought black was just fine here. e5 knight to e4. So I have to admit I haven't very much stayed in touch with recent developments. But black is fine. f6 is coming, queen b6, bishop to g4. This is not a line that one has to be concerned about at all. While the one with bishop takes c6 certainly is. So I would recommend to go back to the drawing board and look at castles e5, b6, queen d6, or rook e8 based plans. Thanks for the question. Sorry for the non-affirmative answer. Best of luck to Japer 10. More questions about g6, this time around by Mr. DaffyDuck, regular on the opening clinics. So I'm out of Bugs Bunny jokes. I'll just read the question. Hi Jan. My question is about 3g6 or 3a6, 4g6 Spanish. Najdorf has played this a lot last time. Is this a good variation for black? How can white make problems for black? Double question mark. In general, I believe that one should add as many question marks as possible to, you know, add a little oomph to your question. If it's just a single question mark, will I really be motivated? No, but now that I know this is a 3 question mark situation, I will certainly ponder it. Well, here it's just 2 question marks. I don't know, not that interested. Should have added a third one. Anyway, for d4, edc3 or for c3, planning d4. Thanks. The usual answer, I don't know. But I will share my thoughts and why I don't know with you. So e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5. And the question is, first a6 and then after bishop a4, g6? Or do you want to start with g6? And my belief is it doesn't matter all that much, because most of the time these lines will transpose into each other. After a6, bishop a4, g6, most people I believe will play c3, bishop g7, d4. You probably take and go b5. And here I've always considered the critical move to be bishop to c2. Bishop to b3 is also very possible. But I always thought this was a little more to the point, d6. And you get these types of positions where I think white is somewhat better, but it's certainly not clear-cut. Mamedyarov has been doing reasonably well with it recently from the black side, so I'm not aware of a refutation. The reason why I'm saying which move to start with doesn't matter all that much is because I think that if you start with g6, you are still very likely to get 4c3, and after a6, bishop a4 still seems the best that white can do. So, as for differences, we have to deal with white trying to go d4 without preparing it with c3. In this position, for example, an old line is d after the immediate g6 is d4, e takes d, bishop to g5, bishop to e7, bishop takes, queen takes. Sorry, cuff button. My apologies. Where was I? Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes d4, knight f6, knight to c3, which looks somewhat better for white, but computer says 0, 0, 0. And, you know, computers are smart people. So probably this is not a big assault on black's line. Therefore, if we don't have to worry about this, we might as well start with 3g6, since after 3a6, bishop a4, g6, there is also the line where white goes d4, when it's not completely obvious how black should react. I believe normally now they do not take. Maybe, I'm not actually sure what they're concerned about. Maybe they're concerned about just knight takes d4 here. But typically black goes b5 in this situation, bishop to b3. E takes d, knight takes d4, knight to a5. This is a recent game. Kramnik Mamedyarov. Kramnik just castled. But the computer is also yelling out some other moves here and considers it to be a little better for white, like queen to f3. Looks interesting because it does threaten checkmate. Or maybe more positional. Play a4, black goes b4. Bishop to d5, c6, bishop a2, bishop g7, short castles. Seems somewhat better for white, even though it's always double-edged situations. And I'm not surprised that Mamedyarov is somewhat attracted to these lines. So, I don't know a refutation. It seems to be a system that is better than people thought, really. The most critical to my mind is still this position, no matter what move order we get it by. Bishop back to c2, as mentioned. Black goes d6. What are castles? Oh no, we don't castle. Because castles is bishop g4. So here there's, yeah, different options. The direct d5 is interesting. And what did Compy say? Compy also had some ideas about bishop to g5. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't found a refutation. Normally what they try to do is d5. And then knight to a5. When, yeah, it feels like white should be somewhat better. I think here we also had a game, Caruana against Mamedyarov. But it's not easy to prove. And it's double-edged situations where this bishop is well placed. So, short version, I have a feeling there should be something wrong with these setups. But I currently do not know what it is. So, it's gonna be either we have to find out, or if we can't beat him, join him. For me, it would be on a list of lines that might be playable, especially when playing for a win against weaker opponents, because all these positions look somewhat unbalanced and sort of non-standard decisions. So, these lines here, they're interesting. And Mamedyarov has stumbled upon a set of systems that maybe have been underestimated a little bit. Thanks for DaffyDuck for bringing it to our attention. I don't know any refutation, and I would probably prefer to start with 3g6, not 4g6, if I had a choice. I do have a choice, actually. Because, yeah, the line with d4 seems less threatening after the direct g6 than after a6, bishop a4, g6. Alright, best of luck either playing that line or trying to bust it. To Mr. Duffy. Is it Duffy or Daffy? I don't know. KingWang. KingWang himself. is asking, "Hi Jan, last series, or perhaps the series before, I asked you for a dodgy but fun sidelining as 1e4, which might catch some people unawares. You suggested e4, knight c6, knight f3, f5, which fits the bill nicely. I have since realized that not everyone plays 1e4, despite it being best by test. And I could really do with a dodgy sidelining as 1d4 as well. Any suggestions? Cheers, KW." This is tough, as happy as I am to provide KingWang, or KW as he likes to call himself, with a dodgy repertoire. 1d4 is a very solid move, and it's not easy, to dodge it up. Probably like the half dodgy lines there aren't surprising enough or too respectable for KingWang, like whatever, the Albans counter gambit, which of course, yeah, it's not great. Or the Chigorin, which I think is decent, but you don't get too crazy positions. So going full dodgy, one could go d4, e5, but that's probably too bad even for his purposes. Even though here after d6, you just a pawn down, you go bishop g4, try to get the pieces out, try to checkmate. But it's not very good. Who would have thought? It's not very good. Bishop g5. So the hard rock gambit, I also can't recommend with a clear conscience. I could recommend it with a heavy conscience. So what's left? Maybe d4, c5, d5, f5. I think you should have a 2 f5 based repertoire. This looks like it's a good system for you. It's only somewhat ridiculous. People probably won't know it. I don't even know what it's called. And it's only half bad. I believe the most critical way to meet it is e4, f8, knight to c3, knight to f6, and now g4, which your regular run-of-the-mill 1d4 player won't do. And even if they do whatever, you blitz e6, and you will use your superior knowledge to confuse them. Because will they really find knight to h3 here? I don't think they will. Some more disclaimers. Knight g2 followed by knight g3 should also be better for white. But once again, they won't do that. They would probably typically go c4, and now your position is not that horrible. It's sort of like a Leningrad Dutch, where the black pawn is on c5, which, I mean, it's still sort of like a Leningrad Dutch, so it's bad. Well, let's say we start with g6. But it's not hopelessly bad. And once again, you might have surprised them. You move the pieces out. If they are like smart guys trying to put the horsey here, you say, I'm also smart and I will cover these vulnerable squares with my own knight. And then do whatever. I don't know what people do. Go rook b8, a6, b5. Or try to go queen e8, g5, queen h5. Typical Dutch business. So I think that's what you would get most of the time. Maybe knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5. But okay, things could be worse. Queen b6. d6, knight d7, d6, g6. So yeah, it's somewhat dodgy, but a bit of a surprise. And d4, c5, the good news is, okay, they can go very wimpy and play c3 or e3, but then you're probably fine already. Therefore, d5 is what most people will play. And after f5, you have them out of book. And you also have a funny looking situation on the board. What's more to one from chess? Like, assuming we don't want equality or respect the laws of chess, like develop pieces and so on. So, best of luck to KingWang, and I sincerely apologize. I didn't have anything even dodgier. IljaJoker, FIDE Master, is saying, Hiya, I have a question about 8a4 anti-martial line. This seems like every episode we have a question about those. Why after 8a4, b4, d3? The move bishop c5 is not seen more often. See? He should have added like 3 question marks. Then I would have known. This is the question. Now, I don't even know. Especially after people realize that the structure in the 9d6 mainline after bishop e6, fe is not so simple for black. What is the critical try for the advantage white have in the position after 9 bishop c5? Thanks for the amazing stuff you offer on Chess24. waiting for the complete black Marshall rep by you on Chess24. That probably won't happen, but yeah, I do have this new ideas in the Marshall series from a while ago. Who knows, maybe at some point we'll update. But since you guys ask me about all the Marshall mainlines every week on Opening Clinic, I'm not sure. I feel the need. Alright, what was the question? Oh yeah, I have an answer to that question. The problem is, you asked the wrong question. That line is irrelevant, and I can explain why. So, Marshall, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, castles, bishop e7, rook e1, b5, bishop b3, short castles, a4, b4. And the point that IljaJoker made was that after d3, why do people go d6, a5, bishop e6? Play these complicated positions. Why don't they play the move bishop to c5? And the answer is, they do and they should, but you can't reach that position because pretty much everybody nowadays has figured out that you don't start with d3 with white if you want that line, but you start with a5. That is a problem. So yeah, to answer this first, d3 bishop c5 is a good move and a very respectable line if white goes d3. Black does have time for this reshuffling of the bishop. But yeah, people know that, and it won't happen because white starts with a5. And now bishop c5 is not really in time since white hasn't committed his pawn to d3 yet. Here white can go c3 followed by d4 and these positions. Whatever, something like this is unpleasant. White has many decent moves here. h3, queen to d3, bishop to a4. There's many options to ask questions here. Bishop g5 as well. Therefore, one can't really do it. And then that means that after a5, the best move that black has, as far as I know, is to play d6. And voila! We're back after d6, d3, bishop e6. With that line that we've been trying to avoid. But the sneaky white players ordered us into it by starting with a5. There's no real way around it for black. Like back in the day, people used to play as Gambit a5, d5 here. That doesn't work. e d4 takes, d4. Well, just doesn't work move by move. So, no, people have had that thought. And you're right, if white starts with d3, then by all means go bishop c5. That's a very playable setup. But if they start with a5, you're not going to be able to do it. Thanks for the question. IljaJoker, FIDE Master. MauroTirelli. He's saying, hi Jan, I'm rated about 2200. And recently I made 2 draws with black against players rated 2000 in the Catalan. Darn 2000s, drawing their way up with the solid Catalan. After 1 d4, d5, knight f3, e6, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, bishop e7, castles, castles, 6, c4. Which variation would you play if you need to win? Do you really need to win? Or do you just want to bully those 2000s? You can beat them with white and then draw with black. And you'll get to keep your rating. I usually take on c4. And after knight e5, I play knight c6. After queen c2, I'm playing b5. But I'm not really able to imbalance the game. But maybe it's me. Do you think that opening... this is a separate question? Yeah, thanks. Do you think that opening books are useful in the computer era? I have a lot of them, but in general, they just follow the first stockfish line. Am I wasting money? I don't know. I don't get many opening books, but I quite like it to have one in my hands, actually, so I'm often telling myself I should get them a little more often. And of course, normally it's following the first computer line, but if it's a good opening book, it will be well organized to point you to the relevant areas. Maybe have some... I quite enjoy reading a bit of text or getting some constants, because let's face it, opening clinic, it's mainly following the first stockfish line as well. That's what we do these days. So it depends on the presentation, and I think good authors should still be able to give you a little something. What bothers me, but it sometimes happens, especially with wide repertoire books, is if people know that a line is nothing, but since I have to sell a wide repertoire book, they will tell me it's better for white, and then I have to switch my engine on and see where they might not be giving me the whole truth. So if it's, sort of misleading me, then I feel like sometimes it's a waste of time. But in general, I feel like I should be getting a little more into the opening books world, to get some ideas, to save some time. But I guess it depends on the book. Now to the actual question. I don't have an answer. Catalan is a good opening. Maybe. Get an opening book on the Grunfeld, the King's Indian. Play something sharper if you feel like you don't manage to create enough imbalance against people 200 points lower rated. I normally, I don't really feel that way most of the time. And I also don't feel very comfortable playing openings I'm not that familiar with. So I sometimes face similar issues. Let's say on my level it's 2400 players. In the Catalan, it's tough. Like, my Bishop E7 is also my main repertoire. That's why I made a video series about it with all my recommendations. How to equalize. And sometimes I will, play d takes c4 here instead. Bishop g2 a6, which of course if white knows what he's doing. And nowadays most people, they know these lines. It's also not easy to, get an advantage. But especially if you want to mix things up and against 2000. I'm not sure if they're really into details here, for example. So that's a line I play quite often, to just deviate and put a little more weird looking situation on the board. Depends on the move order. I think you gave a different move order, maybe with something like this, where white delays c4. But here, I guess b5 could be a decent move. If they don't want to go c4, let's stop it forever. b5, I've always liked this plan. Just, get the pieces out, play c5. And we already have the built-in tension. Then, in this position, 95, knight c6. Of course, there's many lines that are reasonably George. So 95 is a tough one to crack, because you really have to gamble to mix it here. Play a move like queen d6, which I don't trust. c5 I've given somewhere, which I think is a little underrated, but it's also not exactly a winning attempt. So, but most 2000 players especially wouldn't play 95, I would guess. So, queen c2. Here, many playable moves. b5, I'm not sure. I'm a fan of. I've played this once or twice as a surprise weapon. I guess after a4, b4, what's the line? Something like this. White is supposed to be somewhat better these days, right? So I would probably still stick to a6, which I gave in my video series. Or play b6, which is sort of the new kid on the block. When obviously the position remains not better for black. But playable, knight bd7, followed by c5. But what can I say? This, it's mainline stuff. You're playing solidly by going knight f6, e6, d5. And it is often hard to unbalance the game. You might pay sometimes the price with black against 2000. But maybe, first of all, you might earn it back. With black against 2400s, they won't find it so easy to ask any questions if you know your lines well there. And I also do believe that there is still enough material on the board to imbalance the position. Other than that, I told you the line with d takes c4. I guess you could also argue, even though of course white is very solid, that the positions with d takes c4 are somewhat more simplified than, for example, these positions, which I don't like for black. But if you want to keep more pieces on the board, that's another option. But these questions are always tough for me. I really want to beat weaker players, but I want to play a solid mainline. You can do that, and I think you'll beat enough weaker players to, earn your keep. But if you don't want to do it, then play the Banco, play the King's Indian, play the Grunfeld. But don't blame me. Or do blame me. Actually, it's okay to blame me. Come back next time, MauroTirelli, and let me know how it went with the King's Indian. Other than that, in the Catalan mainline, there is no way for black to be better if white knows what he's doing. Sometimes weaker opponents won't know what they're doing. What is this? This is like a whole article by Marchog Gwyn. Dear Jan, thanks for doing these opening clinics. I have a query about a sideline in the Najdorf. 1 e4, c5, 2 knight f3, d6, d4, cd, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6, bishop e3, e6, a3. Yeah, that's a move. Obviously, I could avoid this with 6 e5 or 6 knight g4, but I've been playing Scheveningen setups for 20 odd years and don't want to give them up. What do you think is black's best option amongst? 7 h5. I distrust if white adopts a classical setup. Niels Grandelius lost a game here this year. 7 bishop e7 might well lead to transpositions to classical Scheveningen positions if black can meet hg4 with 8d5, avoiding transpositions to the keres. 7 b5, g4 exclaim, bishop g b7, bishop g2, h5, g5, knight g4, bishop c1, queen b6, when I don't entirely trust black position. 85 might be an option with a sort of funny Pereni attack, reminiscent of Georgiadis Svidler from the recent Biel tournament, but knight ft7 I think leads to a bad line of the keres. What do you think? Apologies for the long question and sub-clauses. Thanks again for doing this. You're welcome. So what do I think? You mainly answered your own question, right? You're in the musings. First of all, yeah, thanks for posting the board. It makes it easier, I think, also for our dear audience to, make sense of what we're talking about before we get to our own board. So let's see what I think. e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, takes, knight c3, a6, bishop e3. I do think that knight g4 is a good move here, as I've mentioned many a time in past opening clinics. So I understand you want to stick to e6 setups, but if you want me to help you solving the opening problems objectively, maybe have a closer look at this complex. It's not bad. So e6, yeah, this a3 is an interesting move, which back in the day we would say that's a Patz's move. He's afraid of b5, b4, wasting a tempo, haha. But it turns out that especially combined with ideas to go g4 very quickly, a3 is a reasonably useful half-waiting move. And I've seen, I think Schenklin did it, and strong players are starting to mix it in there. I agree about b5, what was it, g4? This doesn't look good for black. Especially h5 here, looks like a little too much. Yeah, this is just better for white, queen b6, g6, right? So no, don't do that, especially not h5, but also b5 in general does feel a little loose. And to go e5 here, combined with b5 also, seems somewhat risky, to say the least. I think it's bad for black, probably. b5 doesn't really mix well with this aggression in the center. I'm also with you when it comes to h5. I don't have a refutation, but it does look dodgy after, I don't know, bishop e2 or bishop c4, moves like that. So, as a rule of thumb, I would guess h5 makes more sense once white has played f3, hinting at g4. So I agree, bishop e7 seems like the way to go. And yeah, now if they play whatever, bishop e2, short castles, you can't be too unhappy with white being committed to a3. So g4 once again is critical, and then d5. I guess black should hold, even though this position, it's somewhat less easy than it looks at first sight. Here, yeah, I couldn't really make up my mind what to do. Queen a5 check, this is what was played in this game. Queen d2, takes. Okay, it can't be too bad, but black still has to be a little precise in such positions, or accept to be slightly worse. So stuff like this, I guess white is somewhat better. So yeah, I'm not sure if this solves all the problems. I looked at something like this, which the computer says is playable, but it all looks somewhat shaky. So instead of queen a5, maybe it's a good time to look for a deviation, either short castles or knight to d7, which, yeah, I haven't quite spent enough time on to have a very educated opinion. But it does feel like black should be okay here. And just on general blah blah as well, it seems like bishop e7 is the one move that black will need in all the lines, right? So it feels like the correct move to play. b5 can often be weakening, and especially after a3. directly against b5, b4. It doesn't feel very essential. h5 feels a bit much as well. So I'm team bishop e7, g4, d5. And here, yeah, you have to do some homework after ed5. Or I think knight b3 is also a move the computer was mentioning. But in general, this does feel like the direction to go. If you really do not want to discover the wonderful, wonderful world of knight to g4. So, best of luck to Marshal Gwyn. Then there's our old friend with the reference that I still don't get. It's, what is it again? Alice in Wonderland? I'm German, we don't know chesshirecat. We know Grinsekatze. Chesshirecat. He's saying, hi Jan. We seem to see a lot less of the a6 Slav lately at higher levels. Do we? d4, d5, c4, c6, knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, a6. Could you please tell me what particular lines are making it less popular? Maybe it's just too easy to analyze in detail with the machines. I don't know. I'm not sure what I think. I never thought the a6 Slav was that mainstream because it's an opening where you're not really trying to force equality. What you're trying to do is get some sort of structure, even if you're somewhere worse, where you can then use your understanding, especially in lines like after c5, where the structure gets fixed very quickly, and your tenacity to shuffle pieces around. So I'm not sure if it's become less popular. Kamsky was always a big guy playing it. I'm guessing he's not so active anymore. And don't some of the young Russian players play it? Malakhov was also constantly playing it. But I think it still has some proponents, and I don't think it's been refuted. I would never have considered it a choice, especially in this position. I have always played d takes c4 or e6. Because after a6, first of all, yeah, we're not really putting any pressure on white. We're telling white, choose your move here. There's so many different options. So with black, we still have to cover a lot of territory and different positions. Like c5 is obviously a very serious move. I more often than not have just played e3 when I've always been comfortable with the positions after b5, b3. But black also has other options like bishop f5 or pawn to e6. But I've normally been happy with e3, so it could be that black players aren't that thrilled about these positions either. As for, there's other options. cd5 certainly an option, a4 certainly an option, bishop g5, and so on. As for new moves, ways to put pressure on black that didn't exist before, I believe the only one that has surfaced is the move queen to c2. So if you're looking for a new trend or something that really might have players run away from the a6 Slav, I believe queen c2 is the one thing that has changed that we didn't look at 10 years ago. And that's probably mainly because computers are now more open than ever to just sacrificing this pawn. I think they just go b3. And they're saying, you know what, this is okay for white. cb, ab, pawn up, but black is already committed to a6. We have the center, will develop quickly. So I haven't studied it in much detail, but it does seem like white players have recognized that this is a very dangerous weapon. And maybe black players are just too afraid to go here and now play something you normally don't want as an a6 Slav player, which is a sharp position where your pawn up are under attack. That's more of a semi-Slav sort of structure after e6. So it could be that this is something that has scared some people away from the a6 Slav. But it hasn't been refuted, and I've never considered it to be that mainstream, so I'm not sure if I agree with your notion that it's been around less than it used to be. Still, you have to cover a lot of ground after a6 here. It's more popular, and always has been more popular, after moves like e3. Here a6, or in the other move, or after knight c3, knight f6, e3. Here a6, now white, once the playing field is a little limited to e3 systems, then black normally dares to do it more. Then after knight to f3. But on no refutation, queen c2 is the cool new kid in town. What else do we have? We have Mr. Csaba. Csaba he's not asking about the Banco Gambit. What's happening? He's saying, I'd like to play some sort of QI, that means Queen's Indian, or Nimzo setup versus one knight f3 and one c4. That's why we play one knight f3 or one c4 to, catch you off guard with your QI or Nimzo setup, especially in Nimzo. Anyway, knight f3, knight f6, g3, b6, no problem. Or 2c4, b6. What is the best way to offer this after 1c4? I guess 1c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6, intending b6 later. Yeah, after knight c3, e6, if white goes knight f3, you can play b6, certainly. I can learn c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6, 3e4, d5. Looks like fun. Yeah, that's of course a critical line. Check out my new video series for details. But what about 1c4, knight f6, 2g3? Am I missing some other line by white? I don't want to play 1c4, b6. I know it's not a bad line, but it gets a bit wacky and not Queen's Indian-like. c4, e5, c5 are also nice lines, but I'd like to play something quick and dirty. Quick and dirty, but not as dirty as c4, b6. So, what is it that you want, Csaba? You can't always get what you want. That's the lesson here. But no, let's actually say something sensible. So if you're okay playing c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6, e4, d5, then you're halfway there. e6, knight f3, I guess you can play b6 here. Or c5, g3, b6, and you're back to the wonderful world that are headshot Queen's Indian-esque positions. You probably have to deal with b6, e4, but I'm not sure how bad that is. If it's bad, you can start with c4. So your main concern was c4, knight f6, g3, which, yeah, is a valid concern because white starts and it's going to be tough to fianchetto to the bishop. If white does so first, to have a consistent repertoire, you should probably play c6 here. There's also the main argument against this white move order with 2g3. I understand it doesn't fianchetto the bishop, but you could also argue, since white showed his hand so quickly. c6 followed by d5, blocking this bishop. Makes a lot of sense. There's some theory behind it. After knight to f3, the most principled and aggressive move is to take on c4. There's alternatives like bishop to g4, knight e5, bishop e6. It's a reasonably solid line. But yeah, the main line I think we had at this, maybe the last episode, is something like this. And knight a3, knight b6, queen c2. Here you have to make up your mind if you want to play it safe with g6 or sharply with bishop to e6. So there's a bit to learn here, but that would be the consistent way to round out your repertoire against move order trickery. That way, against knight f3, you can still go your knight f6, b6, or against c4, knight f3. c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6 you're okay with. And then if they try to catch you like this, you're saying, okay, but there's a price to pay for trying to catch me off guard. And that is c6, followed by d5. There's an alternative. Just pointing it out. You can play c5 here, bishop to g2, and now pawn to e6. When knight c3 is not great because of d5. So normally white will play knight to f3. And here you can probably play b6, even though knight e5 yeah, no, I shouldn't recommend this. This is somewhat shady territory. I was just thinking of ways where we can still try to fianchetto our bishop. But I don't like it. So go g3, c6. That's my recommendation. Because white starts, you can't always live the dream. Throwing the bishop here to give you more worries. What about 1g3? Still no bishop. e5, c4, c5, c4. So you probably have to have a plan for that as well. And I guess makes sense to, you know, once again, play setups like this. And most people, to be frank, don't play 1g3. Anyway, best of luck in the Queen's Indian, Nimzo Indian, Chaba. There's more? There's always more. Krunx is saying, hey Jan, in one of your video series, you recommend d4, d5, c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6. First of all, I wouldn't recommend that, so you probably got the move order wrong. Because it would be d4, d5, c4, e6. Because after d4, d5, c4, knight f6, c takes d5, white is much better, right? So always try to, you know, keep a stake in the center if possible. Knight c3, e6, cd, ed, bishop g5, c6, e3, bishop e7, 7, bishop d3. Thanks a lot already at this stage, as I like the position, as it works out fine for me in rapid games. Glad to hear that. But here's my question. As far as I know, you argue that black has problems bringing bishop c8 into the game. Yeah. How would your general setup plan for white look like in order to push a bit for an advantage here? Queen c2, f3, knight e2, short castles, and then rook e1, and pressing e4, or is it smarter to attack on the queen side? Thanks. It's not really a question of smarter or dumber. Both plans you're implying are very valid strategies. And objectively, I'm not sure which one's better, frankly. So it's this position, which, yeah, I really have dealt with all my life, mainly from the white side, but I also played it with black. First round in the German Championship, under 15 in the year 1994 in Bad Bevensen. I won a nice game here with black. No further context. So the question was which plan, knight e2, followed by f3, short castles and e4, which I think the current thinking is that this is the most challenging setup. Knight of 8, f3. Personally, it's never served me that well, and I find it a little tougher to play than the other one I'll tell you about in a second, because I struggle with the timing of e4 here. After e4, you always have to be very careful that black is not willing to blow up the center with d takes e, f takes e, and then c5. Or sometimes there's d, e, f, e, knight, g4. So yeah, I never really managed to grasp these positions very well. But that's, I think, more my problem than the positions problem. I don't know theory all that well here. I think g6 is the main move. b5 is interesting. There's options here. So I've always favored. But yeah, once again, hatching again. Personal preference, not necessarily better. I've always favored to put the knight on f3, rook to e8. And now there's two plans. One is h3, knight f8, bishop f4. Looks stupid, but it's not a bad idea. And then in many lines, castling queenside, followed by g4, which, of course, I don't do because I'm a chicken. I normally play short castles. They go knight to f8, and I play h3. Trying to restrict this bishop, as mentioned, also trying to stop knight to g4, and then keeping the options open. Many times I will want to play on the queen side, rook to b1, followed by b4 and b5, so-called minority attack. I'll give a random sample line, not very important, but just to get the concept. I'm not making good moves here, I just want to show the general idea that after b5, it's hard for black to avoid a weakness. Either after bc, this pawn will be weak, after c5, the d pawn will be weak or will be isolated, and after c takes b5, the d pawn is once again a bit of a weakness. So this minority attack is not easy to parry, and it's certainly a useful tool in anybody's toolbox. Bishop e7 was great here. Bishop f4 would be better, but you know, just to get a feel. So that's the line I typically favor, but it really is a question of personal preference and experience. The knight e2, f3 short castle line, I believe, is considered to be just as good, if not better, a try for an advantage than the one I was just talking about. So best of luck, Krunx, dealing with the Queen's Gambit declined, which, yeah, sometimes you see people going for this, but more often than not, black players have a repertoire that is either based on the Nimzo and only playing d5 after knight f3, or nowadays often they also go d5, cd, knight d5 to play the semi-Tarrasch Kramnik style. So most black players, they will not be too happy to enter these classical d4, d5 positions, even though that might change and there's nothing particularly wrong with it. So yeah, best of luck playing them. All right, last question for today's show by Mr. Smashinglad. Smashinglad is saying, "Hi Jan, thanks for your insights into the von Hennig Schara Gambit last time around. Very useful." That's what I do. Maybe that should be the tagline. Opening Clinic, the show where I give very useful insight. Anyway, thank you. I've put in some work on the main lines, and while I can't claim to be the world's leading expert just yet, I'd say I must be in the top 10 at least. Which sometimes, it's not a bad place to be. We can't all be Magnus, but if you're on the top 10, if you're, I don't know, who's number 10 now? Well, let me look this up in peace. Do I have any compromising material there on the screen? Hope not. Kayakin is currently the world number 10. It's not bad to be Kayakin, right? I hear. Lives a pretty good life. Sorry, back to the question. I've got it on the board. I've not got it on the board that often, though. Sorry to hear that. A surprising discovery from my adoption of the move order 1 d4 d5, 2 c4 e6, 3 knight c3 c5 is the high percentage of people who go 4 knight f3, at least at my level 2000-ish. After cd knight d4, how would you handle this position? Grab the space with 5 e5. It gets sharp, e.g. knight db5, a6, queen a4, bishop d7, cd knight c6. Does that make sense? Maybe. DC, bishop c6, queen b3, ab, e5. Transpose into some kind of English with knight f6, Stockfish's choice on my machine, or go 5 dc4. Many thanks as ever, Smashinglad. Maybe he meant to write many thanks as ever, or maybe his name is May, and like me, he likes to speak about himself in the third person, so he says May thanks. I do not know, but I do have an opinion on the question. So d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, c5, knight to f3. That's what you're hoping for. Because after cd, let's face it, you're in trouble. You have to either play your gambit or play the Tarrasch. Both not the most tempting situations. Unless you're, of course, the world's leading, well, let's say one of the top 10 world's leading experts on the Shire gambit. So knight f3 is what you're hoping for, because now c takes d4 works well for black, as far as I know. Knight takes d4, e5 does get sharp, but this is what you want to play. Knight db5 and a6. d4, knight d5, I think white is supposed to be better, but a6 was the solution, wasn't it? What line did you give again? You had some line here, because the line I know is queen to a4, bishop to d7, and after c takes d, I thought that f6 was a good move. Did you give knight c6 here? I can't remember, sorry. I'm going back to the question. cd, knight c6, yeah. No, play knight f6. I'm sure my Stockfish is just as wise as your Stockfish. And my Stockfish did give the move knight f6, didn't it? I believe so. So knight f6, and here I don't think white is supposed to have anything. There's a bunch of options, but nothing really works. After d6, the key point was that this exchange sacrifice is strong. AB, queen a8, b4, knight to some random square. Bishop takes d6, and black, you know, has a lot of development for his missing exchange. And maybe instead of bishop d6, you can even go bishop c6. I haven't analyzed it in detail, but it does look nice for black. So instead of d6, what else is there? e4, then you just develop bishop c5, followed by short castles. And once again, I think the best white had objectively was trying to force a draw with some weird line like this. When after bishop h6, this is actually a draw. But if black wants to play for a win, because we got a bully, or we want to play for a win sometimes, there's also the option to continue the game by takes and king to checkmate. Also very rare breed that memorizes draws like this for e4 followed by bishop e3. So what else is there? e3 I think is another move computers give. Well, I guess still bishop c5. No, I think this is fine for black, frankly. And I think this is the reason why 4 knight f3 is not played that often at a high level and should not be played that often, because cd knight d4 e5 does work very well for black. Knight f3, you go d4, knight db5 is critical, then a6. Sometimes I've dabbled with this with white, but I could never find anything. So yeah, do that. That's my opinion. The other lines, they don't look as convincing. Knight f3, knight f6. After cd, you have to play knight d5, and you're giving up your dreams of being an exciting Sharahanid gambitier. Or can you go cd here? That's different, right? Yeah, this is a different line. Queen d4, ed, e4. No, you don't want that. Do what I said earlier. Don't go dc4 or knight f6. Is that a good motto for the show? Do what I said? Do as I say, not as I do? I don't know. I do want to thank everybody for contributing, for sending in their questions. And yeah, I hope that I've said something useful. This has been the second episode, I'm guessing, because I'm trying to do 10 questions per episode, give or take, that we still have like 4 more of those, and then we'll reopen the floor for questioning. Thank you guys for watching. See you next week in another opening clinic. Or before that, I'm sure we'll be doing banter blitzes, stuff. Thanks for watching. See you soon.